when I was 20, and I said, this isn't going to work. I don't think I can pursue engineering or really the medical field for that matter. um, I just wasn't enjoying the classes. And I had built up more courage and confidence in my academic abilities at that point. And I said, I don't think I want to do this. And
Hey guys, this is the Hi Podcast, or How I Got Here. I am your host, Travis Waters, and I created this podcast to kind of tell stories that are worth sharing, where there are people that went from zero to hero to zero, or something in between. Now, in today's episode, we're talking to Kamini and learning about how, at the age of 4, she wanted to be a hairstylist. Fast forward to college, originally going to be, an engineer or in the medical field, and then now to where she is today. Let's go ahead and hop right into our conversation, and I hope you guys enjoy. Hey guys, it's me, Travis. This is the How I Got Here podcast. We are now on episode 7, and joining us here, we have the lovely Kamini. Now, for people that don't know you by name or by face, go ahead and kick things off with where you are right now in 2025 in terms of the company you're working with, your title, and all that stuff.
sure. Thank you for that introduction. So, hi everyone. I'm Kamini. I'm based in New York right now, but I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia. So, I am a Georgia sports everything person. I grew up going to many Hawks games, Falcons games, and then I actually ended up going to the University of Georgia after that to attend college. I knew I wanted to go there in middle school, so achieved that dream of going to Georgia and had the best time ever. So after that, I actually went straight into my consulting background. I was a IT consultant for about 4 years coming out of school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And I felt as though consulting was going to be a good way to figure that out. It exposes you to different industries pretty early on. So in my 4 years, I worked in food and beverage, I worked in media, I worked in telecom, automobile. So really calling it all over the place. And I still didn't know what I wanted to do at the end of 4 years. So I actually went and got a master's in data science from Northwestern. And there is actually what started my sports career. So I took a sports analytics management class. And in the class, they had us do a lot of different case studies about what kinds of careers exist in the sports world. You don't really think about the front office or the people behind the scenes that are making all these different sports events happen on the field, on the court. There is a whole staff that's making all of this stuff happen in the background. So they had us do some research. What kinds of jobs would you want to have if you were to work in sports? So that's what gave me the idea to go into sports in the first place. So after that, I was still in my consulting role and I said, try to go work in sports. Let's see what happens if you just apply with no sports background, just maybe a class under the belt. And I applied to 3 different internships. I applied to the Brooklyn Nets, I applied to the Chicago Bulls, and the Atlanta Hawks because that's where I lived. And I said, whoever says yes first, I'm just going to drop everything and go. So as a 28-year-old, I joined an summer intern class at the Brooklyn Nets, and it was a blast. There was probably like 30 of us, and they kind of separated us into different categories, different departments and stuff. So had the best summer of my life. I moved from Atlanta straight to New York. I had lived in Atlanta my whole life. So moving to New York was a really big shift for me. But had the best time. And right after that, basically made a jump from being an intern to a manager of data science at the NFL, which is also headquartered here in New York on Park Avenue. So there I spent a lot of time doing different fan engagement and product work on their owned and operated platform, which is the NFL app, which also hosts their fantasy app and also is their host for their subscription streaming service. So spent a lot of time there and figured out quickly that out of the almost 200 million NFL fans that there are about 100 million female NFL fans. So almost roughly half of that is like female, about 47% are actually female NFL fans, which that stat always surprises people because females are not really as vocal, I would say, as males on their fandom. And so that number really shocked me. But what I think was more surprising was the number of females who played fantasy sports out of that. And the NFL, as I said, has their own fantasy product, but there's just not really high adoption for it. So it kind of got me thinking, why are there 100 million female NFL fans, but roughly only 20 million female fantasy players? And so that gap really felt too large to ignore. And so that's what started Laces. So that's where I'm here now. And I've started this company. It's a fantasy football platform. Well, I should say fantasy sports. It's fantasy sports platform designed for women and casual fans. So if you've downloaded or played any of these fantasy apps that are out there, there's not really a onboarding process. You play fantasy sports and they kind of expect you to know how to play across all the platforms: Yahoo, Sleeper, NFL, ESPN. I've played across almost all of them at this point, but a lot of them kind of expected me to know how to play, which when I first started playing fantasy sports, I spent a lot of time researching and reading articles and watching YouTube videos back when we didn't really have reels or TikToks, things like that. And so that's what got me started. But I didn't want that same experience for my friends who are girls who want to play a fantasy league. So the company that I've started now is one, it's going to teach you how to play. There's going to be like a step-by-step guide through scrollable type videos like TikToks or Reels. It's going to teach you how to play the game. It's a simplified game also. So instead of drafting your normal 16 players, you're going to draft seven. And then whatever points that you earn in fantasy will translate to loyalty points at brands that we love: Sephora, Ulta, Lululemon. So that's the general idea. So I'll kind of pause there. I feel like I kind of threw a lot.
I was like, we hit the fast forward button there a little bit, so let's go ahead and let's hit the rewind, take the VHS tape all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah.
One of the first questions that I kind of like diving into is your earliest possible memory. Whether, I mean, some people have this in kindergarten, some people it's a little bit later in life. How far back can you remember when you first had any idea of I want to do XYZ when I'm older? Doesn't matter what that was, but what's the earliest memory of you wanting to do something or you having an idea? And so what age were you and what was that first concept?
I was 4 and I wanted to be a hairstylist. All I knew was that I wanted to make people feel beautiful. And I know this because my mom tells me this. So that is the earliest memory I have. If we're going like that far back,
Yeah.
that's the earliest
Okay.
memory that I have. Um,
So if hairstylist is the first one, do you, and you know that because of course mom reminds you that this was the first thing you mentioned saying, do you remember when that shifted to something else?
hmm. I think I think as I got older, probably around high school time, is when they they make you start thinking about what do you want to do with your life, because you have to then apply to college, and most colleges in the US will have you pick a major to figure out your classes. And so I feel like it probably shifted more when I was in high school and then went down, could I be an engineer? Could I be a doctor?
Was
At,
engineer that first thing that you thought of when you started to have that, like the guidance counselor scenario where they're like, okay, what do you want to do with your life when you be for your life? Was engineer number one in your earliest memory of that part?
Um, no, I think actually like the medical field was number one, and then it came engineer. But also like coming from a South Asian household, this is like pretty ingrained in our brains. Like there's only two career paths for you. You're either going to be a doctor or an engineer. So at that age, when you're 17 or 18 applying to colleges, you don't even know what's out there.
Were you, when you were applying to colleges with those two potential paths, were you looking for colleges that specialized in the medical or engineering field, or were you just applying to? Because I know you said early on that Georgia's kind of always been on the dartboard of this is where I want to go. Was it I'm going to Georgia regardless of my career path, or I'm going to Georgia because of it?
I was going to Georgia regardless of my career path. And I knew pretty quickly that getting that college degree was definitely going to get me to where I wanted to go. I still didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was afraid to admit that. I feel like when you're that young, you're being guided by so many different people, whether it's counselors at school or your family or your friends. Everyone's kind of going in different career paths, so you don't really know at still at that point what you want to do. And I always say that it's kind of unfair that they make 18-year-olds figure this out. Um, and at that point, you also don't know whether you can change your major when you get to college. Are you stuck in that path? Is what is kind of scary, I think, at that point, too.
So when you started at Georgia, did you have like a degree, or were you essentially kind of getting your the AA stuff, the general ed stuff out of the way while you were figuring out what you wanted to do?
I was a biomedical engineer when I came into school, and I was taking all the science classes, chemistry, biology, physics, all the classes that I really did not like in high school. But at the time, I thought that was what was right. I didn't know, I didn't really know that I had the option to take other classes. And I think I had a light bulb moment probably sometime around when I was 20, maybe 2 years into school, when I was 20. And I said, this isn't going to work. I don't think I can pursue engineering or really the medical field for that matter. um, I just wasn't enjoying the classes. And I had built up more courage and confidence in my academic abilities at that point. And I said, I don't think I want to do this. And in this country, when you want to go to medical school, you better be really, really sure this is what you want to do. They're going to ask you in your interviews, why do you want to be a doctor? That's a very basic question they ask pretty early on. So you need to be really sure that that's what you want to do.
So what you said we're saying earlier kind of gave me a flashback as well to my high school experience where I there wasn't even, I mean, there was somebody who was paid to be a guidance counselor, like there's somebody on staff with that title, but I
Right.
remember at my graduation of like, so the literal high school graduation, people were walking across the stage. Ooh, I just hit my mic there. People were walking across the stage getting their diploma, and the person on the microphone is saying they're going to this school focusing on this degree. And I felt I was so embarrassed and shocked that I go, "What?" I was already supposed to like have that figured out, and so I walked across, and they're like, "Travis Waters undeclared," and I go, "No
Oh
one
my,
even told me this was part of the whole thing." I go, "What? No one taught. No one spoke to me or reached out to me in 4 years of high school, and now on my graduation, I'm shocked that they're actually saying this in the graduation, and then Travis comes along at the end with his W last name, like undeclared. It's like I hate this school.
wait. Okay, let's back up because I have a clarifying question.
Go ahead.
Did you miss the email or the day that they decided to do this? Because I missed plenty of emails. And when you're a student in high school, your brain is all over the place. You're focusing on okay, can I get into college? What extracurriculars am I doing? I was super involved in high school,
Yeah,
so I was
yeah.
like every club out there, like class council, like all of the things. But I definitely feel like I missed some notes of, okay,
So
this
the
is the day we're
problem
gonna
was
declare
is it wasn't like a mass email. It wasn't a mass like, hey, make sure you reach out to so and so and do this. There was a lack of everything, and then uh, it was like, so I mean, eventually I went to college, but I actually didn't apply to college like till at least like the first thing I looked into anyway was like 6 months after I finished high school, because that wasn't like part of my. It's just wake up, go to school, get good grades, and
it.
that was that. And then all of a sudden that 4 year experience is over with, and I was like, oh wait, there was more I was supposed to do during that time period. Oh, thanks. So yeah, definitely caught me off guard at the graduation. I was like, I wish somebody at the school that was paid with some guidance counselor role would have been like, hey, Travis, have you thought about what you want to do with your life? But I, like you said, you're involved in all the like the clubs and everything. I mean, for me in high school, I was the athletic side, football team, weightlifting team. I did drama and stuff. But like in terms of like the political, governmental ish kind of like club stuff of figuring out life, definitely, clearly, I was not part of those. So I want to go now to uh, your you're in college. I believe you're at Georgia for in this timeline right now about a year and a half, 2 years when you say you decided that the engineering medical field is not for me. And I know, of course, you mentioned earlier that just based on the culture that's essentially ingrained to you. So when you came to that realization, and then you wanted to kind of did you want to share that realization with your family, or is like I'm just gonna keep this quiet? I'm gonna get a degree first before I tell them it's not in any of those two fields.
No, honestly, as soon as I realized it, I sat them down, and that was a really true, like, you are you're an adult now, and you can't be afraid to admit things to your parents. And I feel like that also made our relationship better. When you're truthful early on, I feel like eventually parents appreciate it eventually. But that was a hard conversation to have. They parents always have their, vision for you, and they really believe in your potential. So I think when we had that conversation, it was more of, okay, take a couple minutes to process what I'm telling you. Like, I'm not going to be an engineer or a doctor, but I had also thought through what other majors could I be to still be successful in the real world. So I came with a backup plan, which to anybody who's going to go through this, like, come with the plan always to whatever conversation that you have, whether it's with your bosses in the real world. If you're not able to do something, come with the plan. And that kind of carried through my professional career too. So to answer your question, it was a difficult conversation to have, but I had it. And
So my follow up, which you kind of just answered right there, is when you came to that realization that either of these two fields, this is not for me. This is not my life. Did you come to that realization because you found something you had more passion in, or was the original concept that was storming in your head of I don't know what I'm going to be passionate in. I just know it's not this. So does something supplant that, or is it just get me out of here?
I wasn't enjoying the classes, and you really spend so much time in college, obviously in classes, and that's a huge part of your college experience. And I didn't enjoy them, and I couldn't imagine doing that for the next 40 years after that. And that felt unfair, to do. And I think I was also very involved in a lot of extracurriculars in college too. So I had joined some like business organizations because my family is in business. Like, they have a telecom company. So I grew up around the entrepreneur, like, field. My mom is an entrepreneur. She's had her business for 30 years now. So my earliest memories are, me playing with her laptop, or like playing with her like cell phone. I remember those. very, very fondly. So I thought, let me try to also join one of these business organizations just to see what else is out there. And that's what kind of brought me to my next move in college was as a management information systems major, which is what I actually really enjoyed at that point.
In the switching of the focus, did that extend your amount of time in college, or it was essentially, well, I focused on all the gen ed stuff. I just need to do a few focused courses on this degree, and then boom, still a 4 year program.
It extended it by a year
Okay.
because
And
those
then,
first years you spend like taking classes that are now completely irrelevant.
and so you wanted to go that route because you started to kind of get that the entrepreneurial fire from being surrounded by that your entire life. But you, at that point when you switched your major, did you know, like, as close to an actual idea of this is what I want to do, or is it just I'm not sure what I want to do, but I know this is the cloud of the area I want to be in. So if I just finish this degree, it'll help point me in the direction that I'm unsure of right now. Does that
Yeah,
question make
it was.
sense?
Yeah, 100%. It's mostly the latter of what you said, um, because I think what you said earlier hit it so well on the dot. Like, I wish someone who was paid at this university would come and tell me these are the career paths that you could go down with this major, which doesn't happen. They place you in all these really big, big classes when you're a freshman, but all of that is very content focused. It's never like if you pursue this major, you can go and have XYZ career paths. So I think that piece was kind of missing. And I think they've gotten a lot better at it now. They have a lot of like career coaching early on. And maybe the professors are better equipped now to tell you, like, they bring other alumni back to classes to say, like, oh, yeah, I went into consulting or I became a data scientist. So I think kind of to your point, like I knew that I enjoyed the classes. I didn't know exactly where it was going to lead, but that propelled me forward for sure.
So we finished the degree, extra year to get that degree, and then immediately following that, was that okay? I finished, or was it right before you finished? Is when you applied for those internships that eventually got you to Brooklyn?
Um, so I came out of college and I went into consulting.
That's right.
Yeah, so I spent longer than I intended to there, but truly, I feel like if you're unsure about what you want to do, consulting is a very, very good option.
Because
Only
of how broad it is and how many things it covers.
it's so broad, and the people who I started with, they were majors of everything. So I worked with political science majors, I worked with biology majors, engineering, obviously not medical, but it was really funny to meet all these people because they were like, we have this degree, we don't exactly know what we want to do with it, but this consulting firm allowed us to become a part of their, company, and they're going to train us on professionalism, what it's like to be in the corporate world, which consulting does a very, very good job of that. I definitely owe it to my consulting experience that I was able to learn how to write emails, learn how to interact with executive leadership that was much, much older than me at the time. They place you in somewhat uncomfortable situations sometimes, but it's all like a learning experience.
One of the things I was going to comment on that you said earlier was so you were commenting on my lack of guidance counselor, and you're like, I wish I would have known the different career paths for every degree. I feel like so I mean, company's got AI in the name of it in the domain URL, but I'm very heavy on AI enhancing so many things, and I feel like that subject that we're on of essentially lack of guidance. If if ChatGPT was where it is today, I mean, back in what 1999 to 2004, my high school time, if I had that, and I had just the smallest inkling of these are the things I do every day. These are the things I like. How can that blossom into a money making profession? I feel like that the kids these days, which is what I'm trying to get at, have such a more beneficial route. I mean, granted, they're probably at a high school that does have a guidance counselor that does their job, but the ChatGPT and the things that are coming out, I feel like people are figuring out so much early on, not just what they want to do, but like they can get a full spreadsheet of go to this school, take this degree, contact this company for an internship, and kind of get that all laid out. Which, uh, I mean, hopefully that's as beneficial as I believe it is for them if they're using it correctly. So let's get back to the timeline here. Uh, I know you said you worked at the consulting company. I believe your comment was slightly longer than you intended to. So, out of college, consulting, and I believe the next step on the chronological timeline is the internship. So, from what is the time period from graduation, getting degree, to leaving the consulting because you got the Brooklyn opportunity?
I actually forgot one step in this timeline. I'm now
We
realizing
got to
it.
start the whole podcast over from the top then.
Actually, when I came out of college, I worked in a sales position for 10 months at a home improvement company. Um, I can't believe I honestly forgot this for a second, but I was really good at talking to people in college and very social. I've always been kind of social and I enjoyed really meeting people and talking to people. And so I thought maybe I could be successful in a sales role. And so I worked for this company called Green Sky. They're still around. So they basically work in the financing space. They're like a fintech company. They help home improvement contractors offer financing to consumers like you or I who want to get kitchen redone or landscaping, whatever it is. So they help contractors offer financing to consumers. So it was a very brief stint. I was there for less than a year. But that is actually what I did before I entered my consulting career, which that was that feels like a crazy time. I was so young. I was 22 coming out of school and I still didn't know what I wanted to, but I was like, I'm gonna rock at sales. It's gonna be great. Um, so yeah, that's what I did before I entered my consulting career.
And then what when you got the Brooklyn opportunity, where you say essentially you applied for first person that takes me wins, which I'm sure that people have been in that role before, where you're going through Indeed and you're just apply, and either the highest paying offer, the first offer, boom, that's what I'm working at. I've definitely been in those shoes. Now, um, so first, where are we timeline wise from since you graduated college to you just got this email from the Brooklyn Nets saying, yeah, we would love to have you.
Yeah. Uh, I was still working in my consulting career at the time, and I was in my master's program also. So I was working full time and doing school full time. It was kind of during COVID as well, so I was fully remote, pursuing a master's degree in data science, and I was just wrapping up my master's program when I got the offer from the Nets. And funny story, actually, when I got that phone call saying that they wanted me to work there, I was actually in Hawaii running my first half marathon. I convinced my best friend to come run a half marathon with me. And I said, what if we just made a trip out of it? And so we were in Hawaii at the time when I got the phone call, which was hilarious. And I looked at her after I got off the phone call and I said, I'm moving to New York. And she said, wait, what? Like, you've never lived outside of Atlanta ever, and you're just dropping everything and to move to New York to become an intern? I said, yeah. I think at the time, like 4 years in consulting, it had taught me so much. And I really felt like I had paid my dues to corporate. I really was at beck and call of my clients, worked a lot of hours, really gave 200% those 4 years.
I got to follow up on this Hawaii thing. So My concept of vacation is being as lazy and relaxed as possible. What my first question is, was this your first time in Hawaii?
Yeah.
So your first time going to the exotic, tropical, amazing destination of Hawaii, you're like, I'm going to run myself to death. So I guess my first my follow up question is, how many days did you book for this Hawaii vacation?
10
Okay, so it
days.
wasn't like it was a few days where it's like, let's
Yeah.
run, let's recover, and let's go home.
Yeah. So the run and recover was the latter half of
Okay.
the trip. So the first half was spent us like island, hopping, hiking, doing non-strenuous activities so we don't get injured before our race. It was both of our first half marathons, and we both had run cross country in high school. I played a lot of sports in high school, cross country, tennis, basketball. So I convinced her to fly to Hawaii. She was living in SF at the time, and I was living in Atlanta, which I did not realize it was a 10-hour flight to Hawaii. So that part kind of sucked. But she had a 5-hour flight, I had a 10-hour flight, and we spent that first half just like bopping around.
So I know you say you did cross country and everything in high school. Did you keep up your athleticism through college, or was it something where you go, I want to get back into that? So then you essentially trained for the Hawaii half marathon.
I kept running.
Okay.
Running was a skill that I learned in cross country, and I kept running long distances. Never had I run 13.1 miles ever in my life. Even training up to that, I had never actually run the full 13. I ran probably like 8 miles max in any of my trainings. But running is what I had kept up with since then. So yeah, that was crazy looking back at it. But
Now,
you know,
kind of give me a timeline now, just a very short one, so we can kind of see if there's a large jump or a short jump. So you moved to New York, you're working this internship for the Brooklyn Nets. From that period, whether month, year, whatever, to you launching this fantasy company for women, what is the timeline? Like, how many years or months went by? Like, I guess how long have you been in New York? Is the is the easier question.
um, I just surpassed. I'm almost at 2.5 years now.
Okay, so it's essentially you finished the internship for Brooklyn Nets, and then was the idea for this fantasy product to right before the internship was done? Was it after it was done? You're like, okay, what's next? How did that come about?
Yeah. I think I had always kind of felt as though fantasy was just never really catered to beginners because I had never felt so incompetent on something when I started playing fantasy sports, and there was no one to really explain it to me. And then the real question became, how do you explain what fantasy football is to someone who doesn't know anything about it? And I always kind of had that in the back of my mind, but I never really came up with a full business plan until I was working at the league. So a good like year and a half probably passed before I was really kind of like, let me like write this down
Yeah,
somewhere. I had all these thoughts in my head. So I was like, let me try to write this down somewhere. And I didn't focus on it when I was at the league, obviously. Um,
but
but
was the idea born? Was the seed planted in your head prior to finishing the that internship?
no,
Okay.
no.
And did you while okay, you moved to New York, and you're working with the Brooklyn Nets, and was your did you have some sort of maybe like a fascination with New York where you go, oh, after this is over with, I'm 100% staying here. I'm not going back to Georgia where I spent the rest of my life, or is it something that just was it happenstance? Kind of paint a picture of what kept you in New York.
Like you said, I had never lived anywhere else, and I had just truly like shifted my life completely to New York. And I had such an amazing summer here, and New York in the summertime is just it's elite. It's beautiful. Everybody is out. The energy is just very, very different when the weather is warm. And I also knew that the sports media and sports environment here was very, very strong. And I started talking to people who worked in the sports industry, reaching out to people on LinkedIn, asking like, what is your role? What do you do? Um, in your roles, whether it was at different teams, different leagues. I had messaged people who worked for the MLS. I had messaged people who worked for the NFL, the NBA. I thought I could maybe make a jump to the league level at the NBA. I have always been a basketball fan. I'm a huge NBA fan. So I was like, let me try to go work for the NBA. This feels like the next logical move. But I honestly think what kept me in New York is just the energy here was just so different than anything I'd ever experienced.
And I mean, I'm not saying that it doesn't snow in Georgia, but like the
It
amount
doesn't.
of the drasticness. Wait, hold on. You say it doesn't snow in Georgia?
Barely. I feel
So
like we can't really call it snow once you experience the Northeast. Like, you can't really call it snow.
so you being from Atlanta, the I've been many places in terms of the as high up in this continent as you can go. Other continents as well. Seen snow and been cold. The coldest day of my life out of all of the places I've been to was
Don't say
Atlanta, Georgia, for
no.
the Peach Bowl, where UCF beat Auburn to win the share of the national championship. I have never in my life like I tried to get into somebody's car and turn their car on, and I was still like all the hand warmers in my hand. Coldest day of my life. It was like minus, or the feels like was like minus 40. We couldn't play beer pong because as soon as you poured the beer into the cup, it froze immediately. Atlanta, Georgia is a crazy thing because you don't think this is. I mean, I know you're not from Florida, but when you live in Florida, a lot of people don't understand that Ohio can get like 99 degrees because we're taught like Florida's warm, up north is cold, and then so Georgia being so close to Florida, I was like, this doesn't make any sense of anything that I was taught. Well, I mean, going back to the fact of the guidance counselors not doing their job, clearly teachers in the geography sphere aren't doing their job either. But yeah, coldest day of my life. Nothing has put me closer to death based on freezing temperatures than that day in Atlanta, Georgia.
That
Uh,
is
yeah.
unbelievable to hear. When were you there? When was this? Because I
This
very
Peach Bowl was January 1st. It was a New Year's Eve, New Year's Day bowl. It was January 1st, 2017 or 18.
okay.
Yeah.
Oldest years I remember there were when I was in college. Um, 2014 is when we had our first like snow apocalypse, is what everyone refers to. School was like shut down for like 2 weeks. Georgia, the whole state just like shut down for like 2 weeks because we had gotten so much snow at that time, and Georgia's not equipped for the snow. And we didn't have enough snow trucks or salt to salt the roads in all the rural parts of Georgia. Um, but that's unbelievable to hear that it was that cold. I maybe don't remember how cold it was, but it does get really cold, I will say that, but snowing is pretty rare. It won't happen for more than like a day, if that.
So the original reason why I brought that up is I mean you remember the cold days. You know it can get cold in Georgia. So New York, I mean New York can definitely get it's a different kind of cold, but you were so enamored with, like you said, the energy of New York that even if there was more cold or more hot, just varying degrees of temperature of what you're used to, that didn't phase you. You're like, no, this is the environment I want to be in.
I told myself at this point, you're here now, figure it out.
We're not
Truly,
going back home.
truly just figure it out because I can always move back home.
Yeah.
I knew that in my head, like if I really didn't like it here, I wanted to give New York at least a year. Give it a year, live through all the seasons, and if you still don't like it, you can always move back or you can move somewhere else. I at that point I feel like had friends in different cities, Chicago, California, and I really always wanted to live in Chicago. Still a part of me kind of does. But I always loved Chicago. And so I was like, if you just don't like New York, just move there. It'll be fine.
This is probably blasphemous for every New York person that's listening to this episode, but I have to say that Chicago is better pizza than New York, and I'll die on that hill. Deep dish beats flat any day.
Where's the end button on this call?
It'd be funny if just the
What?
Zoom cuts off and boom,
Wait,
there goes
wait,
the
wait.
feed.
You're from Florida.
I so yeah, I love deep dish is the best pizza in the world. I love the fact that I could take one bite of a deep dish pizza and it's the same impact as eating like three slices of the flat folded New York style pizza. We don't have to get into too much on that. That's a whole different podcast that will focus just on the
I'm
best
telling your
pizzas.
next guest to bring this up so that way he can debate you on it. Like,
you're gonna
guarantee
you're
he
gonna
doesn't
figure out
finish
my
today.
schedule and then without me
I'm
even
gonna,
knowing, they're like, all right, Travis, hold on. We need to get back to this pizza subject. And then that's just gonna be a recurring theme for every episode after
I'm putting you
this.
on blast for saying
Oh
that.
man.
Chicago people might agree. Actually, I don't even think Chicago people will agree with you.
They have to.
Small population that
Right.
might agree.
You can it you can get full off of one slice of deep dish pizza. It'll take, well, depending on the person, but one slice equals like three slices, and if they're the same cost, it's a better experience to eat the deep dish. We don't need to focus on this right now. Let's get back into things. So let's well, not fast forward. This is where we're already at. You finish the internship. You know you're staying in New York. You love where you're at. How far between that ending and you actually launching and starting the fantasy product, was it like, oh, now I can finally get into something, let me get into the entrepreneurial side, let's actually start working on something? Was there actually like a few months to a year to more in between where it was just a thinking process?
Oh yeah. Um, the timeline from the internship ending to me starting this. So internship ended in August of 2023. I really fully started pursuing this idea probably in December of 2024. At that point, I had created a whole business plan and I stopped applying elsewhere. I was applying to different jobs, kind of wanting to see what I wanted to do. Um, but I really started pursuing this probably December 2024.
And then going now to December 2024, what it is today, 8 months later, is that what the idea was in December 2024, or how has it? What was the original concept, and how has that shifted for the last 8 months?
The original concept, weirdly enough, was this. It has not strayed from that original business plan that I had. If anything, it's just become more specific than that generalized create a fantasy sports app for women. Um, I've now included casual fans as well instead of just women because of the amount of men who have told me I could use this. I'm not a super avid fantasy player. Some of them had just learned how to play fantasy or had joined their work league or had joined their friends playing fantasy. And so, if anything, I've made it even more kind of broadened the audience, like target demographic. It's instead of just women now, it's also casual fans, but it's more targeted towards the beginners who mostly just happen to be women. Um, but yeah, the original business plan I feel like has not strayed that far from what the actual idea was, which I feel like has made it easier for me to really figure out each specific mission of the business. Okay, how are we going to attack teaching people how to play? How are we going to attack bringing AI into this? How do we approach conversations when wanting to get those loyalty points associated with the Laces brand? So it helped me really focus because I haven't strayed that far from the original plan.
So your platform is something that people can actually play fantasy leagues on with their friends and family and coworkers and whatnot, and it's a free to play platform that can
Yeah.
still earn real real world prizes, like you said, like the Sephora and whatnot. So how are your partnerships with those companies? To where is it just essentially the like a branding essentially agreement where okay, let's put this in my platform, we're branding, we're giving you that a little boost to brand awareness, and then in return you supply the prize, whatever it may be, for that league, for the loyalty points as you mentioned.
Yeah, so we actually haven't like launched this yet. This is all still in the works, but essentially, you kind of hit it on the nail here, where the the data side is how I approach a lot of my business now because of my background in it. The data side is what they're also going to get access to is this is going to be able to help your targeted marketing. You're going to get first party data from women using this platform. And a lot of these now beauty brands are starting to partner with women's sports brands and WNBA, NWSL, LPGA. Like a lot of them now are starting to partner with the Sephora's, Huda Beauty, Elf. You're now seeing your my entire LinkedIn feed now is honestly all these different partnerships that are coming just they're just coming out of the woodworks now, which is insane to see. And just the recognition that women's sports is also getting now is wanting everyone to get involved with women in sports. So this platform will be mostly like a bridge between women, tech, beauty, and sports. You want to reward women for playing and learning the game.
And when is the do you have a specific launch date, or is it kind of like a this season, or when is the what is the tentative schedule for that?
Yeah, beta launch will be sometime in the next 6 weeks around September timeframe, but it's going to be a prototype beta version before actually launching full NFL season probably next year. But we want to get all the kinks worked out in the next 6 weeks. And I have a large group of beta testers from a wait list that I actually have. I started it a couple months ago, started floating the idea around to people, and they've spread the word to their friends. And I have social media marketing kind of going on too. So I have a good amount of support ready to test the product whenever it comes out.
The question that I like wrapping up the podcast with, and now that we've kind of gone from you at the age of 4 of wanting to be a hairstylist to now running a soon to be released fantasy product for now beginners and casual fantasy players, there across the entire timeline from 4 to now, there's been a lot of different things, this, whether in your control of your decision making, outside of your control, things that we call the butterfly effect. If you were to attribute where you are now to one specific butterfly effect thing, whether it was in your control or outside of your control, throughout your entire lifetime, what's the number one most important event that occurred or decision?
Honestly, I think the most uncomfortable I had ever been, but also the biggest growth moment was moving outside of Georgia, moving to New York, where I had never left my friends or family. And I knew that my life was about to change pretty drastically going into a sports world that I still really didn't know about. I knew nothing. Now, looking back at it, now knowing what I know, I really knew nothing. I was going in as a fan. I was going in being like, oh my gosh, working in sports is going to be so cool. It's so glamorous. It's not. It sounds way more glamorous on the outside than it is on the inside. And I always like to tell people these sports companies and leagues, they operate like a normal business. They have normal business problems, same, you know, politics, whether it is, or same corporate structure. So I always like to remind people, don't chase just the logo. Talk about work culture. Talk about meet the people that you're going to work with. Um, and I think be comfortable in being uncomfortable and do something that's totally something that was unlike you to do. I think that was truly the defining moment. Is when I moved here. I thought I was going to hate it here. I didn't know. I really didn't like visiting before. I thought it was a little too hectic, jam packed. But then when you get here and you move here, it slows down. Everything slows down. So,
All right. Well, once again, we appreciate you telling your story or sharing your story with us. If there's Anything else you would like to share to the viewers and listeners of this episode? The floor is yours.
I always tell this to people that I also mentor. Say yes to everything. When you start a new venture or start a new job, whatever it is, say yes because opportunities don't always come. So go in with an open mind and say yes when someone offers you something in a new opportunity.
All right, I
That would be
like
my
that. All right, well, thanks again for your time. And everyone, make sure you tune in to our next episode. If you want to go to LinkedIn, her name is clearly on the screen here. If you are listening to this, it's written out on the podcast episode. I can't guarantee she's going to accept the LinkedIn connection request, but you can always try. Well, I mean, if you're on the say yes mindset, she probably will. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks for watching.